All right, let's dive into another one. This time we're taking a close look at Pakistani politics. And things are, well, pretty intense over there. We received a fascinating set of articles from Al Jazeera English all about Imran Khan. And our listener wants to really understand the current situation.
And it's definitely a fascinating and complex time to be looking at Pakistan. Things change quickly there, as these articles highlight.
Yeah, no kidding. For those just catching up, Khan, the former prime minister, the cricketer, was recently arrested. And the reaction has been huge, with major protests demanding his release. And these aren't just small demonstrations. We're talking the first major show of force from his party, the PTI, since those disputed elections back in February.
And the timing of these protests, that's really key here. It came after a period where the PTI had been relatively quiet. This sudden surge in activity, it suggests they're back, making their presence known again.
It really feels like the whole country is on edge right now. And the photos from Al Jazeera's gallery, huge rally calls for release of Pakistan's former PM Khan, they really capture that raw energy. Just thousands of people flooding the streets demanding Khan's release. It's powerful stuff.
Those images are really telling. They show just how much support Khan still has. This isn't just about one man, it's a whole movement. To see that level of support after the disputed election results is significant for sure.
And then, as if the protests weren't enough, you have these rumors, whispers really, that Khan could be facing a military trial. What are the implications of that, especially for a democratic country like Pakistan?
A military trial for a former prime minister in a democracy. It's incredibly unusual, and it raises serious questions about where Pakistani politics might be heading. This isn't just about Khan as an individual at this point. It's about the potential weakening of democratic principles, the rule of law, the whole system.
And what would a military trial even look like? Like, how would it be different from a regular civilian trial?
Well, essentially, it means Khan would be tried under a different set of rules, a separate legal system, military law, not civilian law. So the procedures are different, the rules of evidence, even the potential punishments. It's a whole different ballgame.
And historically in Pakistan, how has this two-track legal system played out? Have there been concerns about its fairness, its transparency?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And to be frank, there have been concerns raised about the transparency and accountability of military courts in the past, especially when it comes to cases with political implications. Some critics argue that military courts might not be as impartial, especially in politically charged cases.
So it's not hard to see why people are worried, right? It feels like the government might be trying to make an example out of Khan, a warning to anyone else thinking of challenging the powers that be.
That's certainly a possible interpretation. And you can't ignore Pakistan's history. Military coups, interventions in politics, these aren't new concepts in Pakistan. This whole situation, even just the possibility of a military trial, it could be seen as a power grab, the military trying to assert its influence again.
And it gets even more complex because, on top of everything else, the government is also trying to ban Khan's political party, the PTI. So the very tools they're trying to use against him could backfire.
That's a real possibility. It just shows how unpredictable Pakistani politics can be, how quickly things can change. You have the government making these big moves, but then there are these legal loopholes, these unforeseen consequences that could completely derail their plans. And it all ties back into this larger issue, the ongoing power struggle between civilian institutions and the military in Pakistan.
Right, and it's important to point out, even with a potential ban looming, Khan's party scored a pretty significant win recently when it came to parliamentary seats.
Absolutely. They managed to secure enough reserve seats in parliament to actually block the ruling coalition from getting a two-thirds majority.
And for those who might not be familiar with all the ins and outs of parliamentary procedure, what does that two-thirds majority actually mean? Why is it so significant here?
Well, a two-thirds majority in parliament, that's like the golden ticket. It would give the ruling coalition immense power. The ability to push through constitutional amendments, potentially even remove Khan from politics altogether. But by preventing them from reaching that threshold, the PTI, even though they're in a weakened position right now, they've shown they can still act as a check on the current government's ambitions. It really shows they're not going down without a fight.
It's like this high-stakes game of chess, with each side making their moves, trying to outmaneuver the other.
And then you have Khan right in the thick of it all, and he throws everyone a curveball.
The Oxford University thing, right?
Yeah, his application to be the Chancellor of Oxford.
It's crazy. You don't see a former prime minister facing potential charges possible exile, going after a prestigious academic position like that every day.
It's definitely unexpected. So what's the strategy there? Is it a power play, a way to retreat gracefully and raise his international profile? It's hard to say for sure.
Right, what's he thinking?
Well, one thing's for sure. This wasn't some last-minute decision. The current chancellor, Chris Patton, he announced he was stepping down back in February. So Khan's been planning this for a while. He's playing the long game here.
Wow, so this has been in the works behind the scenes all along.
Exactly. It suggests that Khan, he's thinking beyond this immediate crisis, thinking long-term, whether he really thinks he can be Oxford's chancellor, or if it's a strategic move to give himself a platform, stay relevant globally. Those are interesting questions.
It's like he's trying to keep everyone guessing. And speaking of unexpected moves, Khan also recently proposed these conditional negotiations with the military.
And he even went as far as appointing a representative for these talks. Given everything that's going on right now, that's a pretty big deal.
Huge. Especially because many see the military as the driving force behind his current predicament. For Khan to even suggest negotiations, it seems like he recognizes he needs to find some way to coexist, even if it means compromise.
Which, knowing Khan and his history, that could be a tough pill for him to swallow.
Totally. This is a man who built his career on challenging the established order, taking on powerful institutions. Compromise doesn't exactly scream Imran Khan.
You're right, he's not exactly known for backing down. But these are extraordinary times, and they might call for a different approach. It could be that he's shifting his strategy, realizing that direct confrontation might not be the best way forward right now.
So what do you make of it? Is he serious about making peace with the military? Or is this just a tactical move to buy himself some time, gain public sympathy?
It's too early to say for sure, but the fact that he's willing to come to the table at all, that's significant. It says he understands how serious this is, but whether it leads to a lasting solution or just a temporary ceasefire, we'll have to wait and see.
I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. But taking a step back, looking at the big picture, the protests, the legal battles, the possibility of a military trial, the Oxford application, these proposed negotiations, it's a lot.
Yeah.
For someone trying to make sense of it all, what are the key takeaways here? What does this tell us about Pakistani politics right now?
Yeah. Volatile, that's the word that comes to mind. You have a deeply divided population, a government struggling to hold on to power, and a powerful military pulling strings in the background. And then you have Imran Khan himself, a charismatic and polarizing figure who still commands a lot of support. It's a recipe for, well, volatility.
And we haven't even touched on the economic challenges facing Pakistan, challenges that are directly tied to all this political instability.
Absolutely. The country is facing real economic headwinds. And the longer this political uncertainty drags on, the harder it will be to address those economic problems effectively. Pakistan's walking a tightrope right now, both politically and economically.
So let me try to sum up the situation in Pakistan for anyone who's just joining the conversation.
Pakistan is at a crossroads. The choices made in the next few weeks, the next few months, by all the players involved, those choices will have huge consequences. Not just for Pakistan's politics, but for its economy, its place in the world. The stakes are incredibly high right now.
It really does feel like things are hanging in the balance. And with so many different factors at play, it's almost impossible to predict what happens next. So what do you think are the most likely scenarios for Imran Khan at this point? Could he actually return to power? Or is this the end of the road for him politically?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Does he come out of this even stronger, seen as a martyr even? Or does he end up in exile, forced to watch from a distance as Pakistan goes through this turmoil? Or is there some other possibility here, something we haven't even thought of?
You know, that's what makes Khan so fascinating. Just when you think you've got him figured out, he does something like this Oxford application. He's always keeping everyone on their toes.
Exactly. He's unpredictable, and that's part of what makes Pakistani politics so captivating, so full of twists and turns. The only thing we can say for sure is that nothing is certain. But to get back to your question, there are a few key things to keep an eye on in the coming weeks and months developments that could tell us which way things might be headed.
So what should we be watching for specifically? What are the major red flags or green lights for that matter?
Well, the outcome of these negotiations with the military, that's crucial. Will they actually lead to a de-escalation, maybe some kind of power-sharing agreement? Or are they just a strategic move, a way for Khan to buy some time?
And then there are the legal challenges, the potential ban on the PTI, the possibility of a military trial for Khan himself. Those seem like major turning points as well.
Absolutely. The legal battles are just as important as the political maneuvering. Any win or loss in the courts, it'll have a ripple effect. If Khan's party is banned, for example, that could easily escalate things, lead to even more unrest. But if Khan wins in court, that could energize his supporters and shift the balance of power.
There's so much at stake here. And not just for Khan or the other key players, but for the future of Pakistan itself. It feels almost irresponsible to try to predict what's going to happen.
You're right. Trying to predict the future in a situation as complex and volatile as this is a fool's game. But we can watch for those key indicators, those signals. What happens with the negotiations with the military, the outcomes of the legal challenges, how the public reacts, what the international community does. Those things can help us understand the forces at play, the potential paths forward.
That's really helpful. It's easy to get lost in the day-to-day headlines, but it's important to zoom out, to look at the bigger picture, the underlying dynamics. That's what helps make sense of it all.
Exactly. Don't get distracted by the noise. Focus on the signal.
Great advice. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for walking us through this intricate situation in Pakistan.
It's been my pleasure. It's a subject I'm always fascinated by.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you a clearer understanding of the challenges facing Pakistan today. As we've discussed, this story is far from over. The ending is still unwritten. Keep asking questions, stay informed, and think about the implications of every new development. The future of Pakistan might just depend on it.